Hare Krishna.
Jai
Welcome, Jai. Welcome to our interview session for the Books at the Basis, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Ministry of Education, organizing the Books at the Basis, and we are encouraging everyone to read Srila Prabhupada's books. So I would like to welcome His Grace Bahushira Prabhu. He's a senior disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I'd like to inform you, those who do not know about Bahushira Prabhuji, it is better to know his engagement, his joining in ISKCON, and how he's contributing his service for pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. His name was Bahushira Das, and he joined the Boston, Massachusetts greater area in 1971 when he got the Back to Godhead and for the Sunday Feast program. It was his first feast and the first temple visit to know and decided to stay. Few days later, Gaura Haridas saved me up. Later on, the first Transcendental Expositions roadshow ran by Vishnujan Swami and Sudama Swami needed a drummer in Newark, and I joined the devotee there, playing the drums. In September 8, 1972, we played for Srila Prabhupada at the Syria Mosque in Pittsburgh in December 72. I received a letter from Srila Prabhupada that I was accepted as his disciple and named me Bahushira Das. After Srila Prabhupada disbanded the roadshow, I stayed in New York City Temple. In February 1974, went to Atlanta, Georgia to stay in the temple for 1 year. Srila Prabhupada came there in February 75 and then received Gayatri along with Vaishnavanandan Das. In March 75, went to Sri Mayapur, India. A group of devotees went to South India to preach at Pandal programs with Achyutananda Swami. After 6 months, I returned to US. Few months later, Abhinandan and I linked up to manifest his ideas to start with Indian BBT Library Party. We collected Lakshmi and joined in January 76 with Gargamani Swami to buy vans and drove them all the way from Frankfurt, Germany to India. It took us 2 weeks to drive to Amritsar, Punjab, India. What a great adventure. With Gargamani's top-mounted speakers blaring the Hare Krishna mantra, we drove to Mayapur to see Srila Prabhupada from 76 to 78. I visited libraries all over India. Then in Mumbai, I was asked by Patita Uddharana Das if I wanted to work on collecting interviews for Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrit. I was more than enthusiastic to do this service. Then in August 79, I went back to the States to start a farm project with some devotees. But then in December 82, Krishna had other plans for me. A 100 years flood came and washed everything away and almost me too. The devotees and then I went to St. Louis, Missouri to live in the temple. After some time, I realized that I wanted to get married. It took me a year in 1983. I met my wife in San Francisco and we have been married ever since. We worked at the 3 restaurants in ISKCON, had the city in 1991. I started Pujari service in San Francisco. The temple closed in 1994 due to the city high cost of living. We started going to New Jagannath Puri in Berkeley and continued my service as Pujari and have been since then. I do aratiks, offering, and all the needed samskars for the community and assorted fire yajnas. For temple festivals, I engage doing the decorations with other devotees, help and perform Abhishek as my regular service. With Srila Prabhupada's blessings, currently I am still doing these services in New Jagannath Puri in Berkeley, California. This is the bio of His Grace Bahushira Das. So I would like to welcome him from this program. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for
Jai, glad to be here. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. So we will do an interview session, which is regarding the books at the basis, the program, which is initiated by ISKCON Ministry of Education. And we will start with our journey with the first questions. So Prabhuji, I would like to know about your reading practice. So how do you ensure enough time every day to read Srila Prabhupada's books?
Oh, right now, of course, I just became retired this year in January. So I have more than enough time to read. I read, basically like 2 to 5 hours a day, depending on, different reasons and different research. also is that sometimes reading in the morning, sometimes in the evening. And it depends also if I find a certain sloka, then I want to cross-reference it and read it in different ways that Prabhupada presents it.
Excellent. And how much time do you give reading Srila Prabhupada's books each day?
As I said, like 2 to 5 hours.
Wow, 2 to 5 hours. How do you find time?
Well, no, I'm retired, so.
I see. Perfect. Thank you. Have you taken a personal reading vow or commitment?
No, because basically I'm a researcher type, so I'm always, always looking in so many different ways for so much different things that I'm interested in relationship to Prabhupada's books. So I'll find one topic and then I'll look on, I'll look all over and research in many different ways on the computer, with Bhaktivedanta database. But then also I have, all of his books and published books after Prabhupada left also, BBT books. Then I'll also be researching in there because I like to see the flavor of how he presents each like different verse and his mood and the different verses and then how he presents them. And sometimes he presents half the verse, and then I like to see how he does that. And so that way I like to get his flavor, plus listening to the lectures. Every morning I listen to his lectures for half an hour. About right now I'm listening to all the Bhagavad Gita lectures. So half an hour every day listening to his lectures and half an hour, 45 minutes at night when I'm walking. I do walking for exercise.
Interesting. So how do you overcome likely any obstacles in reading, such as no time, no peace of mind, or no test, no inspirations, tiredness, etc., in any of the day?
Usually, I get up in the morning, of course, is that after I do my morning preparations, and of course I do arti to my deities, and then I do my japa, get all my japa done. And then after that, then I take prasad, and then I do my Gayatri, and then I start reading. So, I usually start around 12:30, 1 o'clock. I start reading, and I might go through the whole afternoon, or I might go 3 hours or 2 hours, and then pick up again, if I have to go out and do yard work or something, and then pick up again where I left off. But I'm usually reading like 4 or 5 different Prabhupada's books, concentrating more on Bhagavatam and Gita, and then sometimes looking at a few other ones like Isha Upanishad or Nectar Devotion.
I see. Good to know. So do you have any like specific time, place you read every day? Like as you mentioned that you start at 12:30 in your deity room or in a library or going to the park, or how do you?
Yes, next to the altar, I have a special chair, and then I have all my research books there. Well, I have a big library, so I mean the books that I'm reading right then and there, I have right next to me. And then after that, then that's my basic place. If I have to look up something on the internet, then I'll go, of course, on the computer in the computer room, and then there I'll go on Bhaktivedanta database.
I see. So is it like how do you study? Like, do you make notes? You mentioned that you are, because you are a research-oriented personality, and do you make any notes and any specific kind of notes? For example, if you're reading a chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, some subject you didn't understand, or you have a deeper insight, could you elaborate?
Is that I found the best way to do research for me, because it's research, research, research. So for me, I found it worked very good. I followed the example of other devotees in the movement. You get your own personal notebook, and you might have 2 or 3 notebooks. I found it's better to have 2 or 3 notebooks because one notebook's not enough. And so you have it where you'll say, for instance, you might do a category, a certain category, like say, for instance, japa or something. Then what happens is I'll start getting the quotes on japa or another, or one on spiritual master or another. And then that way you've got enough room so you have, you can take all the notes you want. Because a lot of the things we know as devotees, but sometimes there's certain technical things that you want to get down in writing. And you don't want to have everything jumbled up. So you want to have things in categories where you can easily find it. So it isn't like, oh, where's that quote? Where did I put that? This way you have a book, a notebook. So it makes it easier like that.
I see. So,
Gar- Gar- yes, Gargamuni was saying,
mhm.
um, he was saying is that early in the movement in 60 joined in 66, so it was like 66, 67 around there. Prabhupada said, I wrote these books for hearing. And the devotees go, hearing? Yes, hearing. In other words, he said, now read. And the devotee would read out loud. And that way, by hearing someone reading, it's just like, not just in Bhagavatam class, but like during prasadam, during milk prasadam at night before you went to bed, you'd be hearing Krishna book. And in the morning, you'd be hearing Isha Upanishad, Bhagavatam, Nectar Devotion before you went out. So you'd be hearing, and they'd pass the book around, the Shastra around, and different devotees would read. And then by reading and out loud, the hearing, it has a different effect than just us reading. We might start to nod out.
I know that's the particular test you have. So, how do you like contemplating what you have studied? Like you meditate on those particular pastimes. Let's say Prithu Maharaj, you study. So in the night, likely you meditate on that, or if you are participating in a class, then you give an example.
Well, if I'm going to be researching for a class, then automatically all the slokas have to pop up. Like I have one sloka book that was made by Dhanavir Maharaj, Uddhama Shloka. And then there, all the wonderful slokas that Prabhupada would chant and recite, they're there. And then I'd mark off the ones that I like and the ones that probably quoting the most. And in that way, then I would flip through it all the time. And I'd say, okay, yeah, there's that verse, and become more and more familiar with them. And after a while, a chain reaction starts to happen because you say, okay, this verse matches with this verse. And then when I'm jumping on my trampoline in the morning for exercise, listening to Prabhupada, then what happens is I hear Prabhupada and I go, oh, this verse goes with what he just said. And then Prabhupada will quote, I'll go, oh, he just said a verse that quotes with a verse that was in my head that I read last night. So it starts to create a transcendental chain reaction. And it's something that never ends. It just keeps going and going and going and going.
Interesting. So I know you have got the taste. So is there any specific advice you would like to share with us, like improving our reading practice?
Yes, there's one quote I had here. Prabhupada said in Srimad Bhagavatam 177, he said, simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, it sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So in this way is that Srila Prabhupada is inspiring the devotees by quoting like this, giving different verses for different reasons. There was also a nice quote from Burijan, where he was saying is that Prabhupada was saying, hear, hear, hear. So here's an example. It says, a man says to Prabhupada, what if you hear in your heart, but don't act in your life? Prabhupada, huh? Krishna Krishna. What if you hear, but don't act accordingly in your practical life? Then Prabhupada says, no, hear means you do it in practical life. Otherwise, what is the hearing? Then, just like a stone, it has also got ear. Hearing means will react. That is hearing. The more you hear, the more you will react. Then practically you'll do it. Everything comes from hearing. Hearing is so important. Just like even in your ordinary education, you go to school, college, and you hear from your professor. Then you become perfect and take your degree. Similarly, the science of God, you simply hear about it. Shravanam Kirtanam. Then gradually it will purify. Hearing means purifying the dirty things within the heart. And that is hearing. Chaitya Dharpana Marjanam, Shinvatam Sakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana. Because it is spiritual hearing. It has got the potency to purify you. It is not ordinary hearing. It is spiritual hearing. So it has got a potency. Shinvatam Sakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana. Anyone who takes part in this process of hearing and chanting, he becomes pious, purified. Just like if you touch fire in some way or other, it will act. So in that way, that I was very encouraged by hearing that. And he said, "Oh, I said I definitely have to share that with the devotees because by hearing Prabhupada's lectures, and then I have someone reading, like your wife can read to you, at breakfast or in leisure or whatever, or vice versa. You can read to your wife, or you could have your child to read to you. Okay, reading lesson today. We're going to read Prabhupada's books. Here, read to me, and then your child can read to you. So in that way, it becomes very inspiring to hear Prabhupada's books to increase it more and more.
I'm very impressed. This is really new insight, reading on your own, then hearing by reading someone else. So now getting some reading inspirations. Which book you're currently reading now?
Srimad Bhagavatam and also Bhagavad Gita.
Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Wow, both of them. So you're
Yes.
like distributing morning Bhagavatam, evening Bhagavad Gita kind of things?
Yes, because I also give classes now. Everyone's giving classes on Zoom, so then I have to prepare for the class naturally. You see, and then sometimes I have to give Bhagavatam class also. So that comes up, because now this wonderful invention of Zoom has inspired all the devotees. So in a way, it's a blessing from Krishna, this technology.
Yeah, everybody is able to get all these contents. Thank you. Yeah. So what is your favorite book or chapter, pastimes, or purports?
I love Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Sarvasachaham hridi sanivisto attasmritin ganam aponam cha. Vidaschar saver aham eva vedyo vedantakrit vedavid eva chaham. That's my favorite one.
Me too. I love that slogan.
Oh, I love it because everything's
Especially the
there.
15th chapter, I chant every day.
Yeah. Everything is there. So.
Very nice. Any pastimes?
And then also 11th canto and first canto, because in first canto, Prabhupada really jammed in so much nectar because, in reality, probably early in the movement, a lot of devotees don't know now, but early in the movement, Prabhupada was telling us, I don't know how long I have. So, so he packed everything into the first canto, even before he came to the United States. So first canto and second canto are so jammed up. Of course, also teachings of Lord Chaitanya is filled with so much, Prabhupada compressed so much juice within those, 3 books right there. It's just so inspiring. And then, of course, also I like 11th canto because there's so many detailed instructions as well.
So it is very nice to know. So I would like to know, how do you find like the reading to be important for a preaching? If you think that reading helps in preaching, please elaborate.
Oh, extremely. Because as you memorize verses, then they begin to match up to the purports and vice versa. Prabhupada said in September 4th, 1975, a letter to Kshira Dakshaya Vishnu, he said, simply read my books and repeat what I have written. Then your preaching will be perfect. So in that way, Prabhupada is encouraging us by reading his books, your preaching will become. Because Prabhupada said, if you don't read my books, then if you're going out preaching, are you reading my books?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Because sometimes the boys are just going out and collecting and selling the books, but Prabhupada said, are you reading them?
So from being as a leader for so many years, as a disciple of Prabhupada, so what do you think the importance of daily reading for our ISKCON leaders?
Yes, there's a quote here from Burijan also. And he says, Prabhupada and his entourage, Prabhupada took a seat. He was pleased by the group of interested souls and he began kirtan. His lecture criticized, quote, those who preached but who were not reading, unquote. Without Shravanam, what is kirtanam? He asked the guest as he looked at me. Burijan's one of the leaders, So devotees who are too busy to read Prabhupada's books should take note on this instruction. If we don't study, we may not be prepared to fight Maya. Men become strong and stout by eating sufficient grains, but the devotees who simply eat ordinary grains, but does not taste the transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, gradually becomes weak and falls down from the transcendental position. However, if one drinks a drop of the nectar of Krishna's pastimes, his body and mind begin to bloom, and he begins to laugh, sing, and dance. And then purport says, all the devotees, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 25, verse 278. All the devotees connected with this Hare Krishna movement, Krishna conscious movement, must read all the books that have been translated, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal, blissful life of transcendental pleasure. Then also, as well as by reading and following, the leaders will realize the importance of developing fellowship with the devotees in ISKCON, the rank and file devotees. Because sometimes the leaders get so big and then they're not reciprocating with the devotees, rank and file the devotees enough. So that's very important. We need that fellowship.
Yeah, I think I got the point, which is definitely to be encouraged. So one also aspect is like we are told that Srila Prabhupada's books helps us better understand his mood and the mission of ISKCON. So do you have any personal realization with this and you would like to share?
Yes, there was one I wanted to share here. Where Prabhupada was saying to a group of students, he said to ISKCON students, August 2nd, 1967, never think that I am absent from you. Physical presence is not essential. Therefore, presence by message or hearing is real touch. Lord Krishna is present by his message, which was delivered 5,000 years ago. So that's one of the important points that struck me also. And then also in again in Path of Perfection, page 1981 version, page 130, chapter 9, Prabhupada says we must have to try to understand by hearing and then try to put the process to practice in our daily lives by becoming submissive, hearing from the right source, and trying to apply the teachings in our daily lives. We can become conquerors of the Supreme. For one who does this, Lord Krishna becomes easily available. Ordinarily, good God realization is very difficult, but it is very easy for one who submissively hears Shruta Katam.
Very good. I know these are a lot of realization and inspirations will come from reading Srila Prabhupada's books and all. So one thing is we are advised to read in order that we may see the world through the eyes of scriptures, Chakshu, Shastra Chakshu, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you give example that how we look the world through Prabhupada's books?
One thing is that by reading Prabhupada's books, one develops more compassion and tolerance, because when you're preaching, you're meeting so many different types of people. And especially right now with the COVID-19, so many people are suffering so bad. So we don't know if they've had a bad day, even in regular life, even before COVID. We don't know if they've been having a bad day. We don't know what the person's going through in their life. So we have to have some compassion and tolerance, because anything can come your way with the person you're preaching to. So Krishna always guides the devotee from within the heart, that if something comes up, then he shows you a realization. He shows you something in his books. And you say, oh, that matches up with what I went through today out preaching. This is what, and then, or sometimes you read something and then boom, that same thing you were reading occurs when you're out preaching. And then you say, oh, yeah, Krishna, because Krishna guides the devotee like that. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam pratiporvagam. He gives the intelligence, you see, so we can become more appreciative of how everyone out there is a spirit soul, just like we are. And they're just more covered over than we are. So in that way, we have to open our hearts. It's easy to be mean, but it's hard to be nice. So, and that comes with being tolerant and just appreciating wherever the person's coming from. You try to, Vaisheshika is very expert at showing how to approach people and how to make the situation in a positive way, so that you can connect with the person heart to heart.
Yeah, very interesting, Prabhu. And one thing is, in what way would ISKCON be different if every member was reading Srila Prabhupada's books for 1 hour daily? Right now, this mood is the books at the basis campaign we are doing to encourage everyone to read 1 hour daily. So,
Uh-huh.
what would you see if there are millions of devotees across the globe read 1 hour daily? So, what difference you would see?
Oh, even 1 hour, one word, one sloka, one sentence, one paragraph. 1 hour, half an hour. All those will have extreme benefit because Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam is that these books are the incarnation of God. Prabhupada says, I read my own books because I read them and I say, Krishna's written this. So in that way, just by reading like that, is that Krishna will talk to you through the books. That's one thing, is that it's a very important thing, is that if you have a question, just go to Prabhupada's book and open it up, the Gita or the Bhagavatam, and you'll find your answers like that. Pray hard, Vandanam, and then go for your answer, go to the books. And then you can open it up. Many people in India, villagers in India will do that. They'll pull out the Ramayana, they'll open it up with a big question, serious question, and then they'll find the answer right there in Ramayana or Bhagavatam or Gita.
Excellent point, Prabhuji. So, what have you found personally to be the most effective way of encouraging others to increase their reading?
Always, every day. You have to, it's an austerity. It's like chanting your rounds every day. Every day you have to put it strongly, put it in somewhere where you fit your rounds in. So automatically you say, okay, I have to put in reading some of Prabhupada's books. I have to put it in there, you see. And if you can't do that, then do some slokas. Slokas also have volumes of meaning to them. They aren't just words. So if you can't do the reading, just have some slokas. One devotee was telling me, he says that when he's driving in the car, he has the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita memorized, Akruranath. And he said, I just start, by memorization, I just start going over and over. And so that way he's driving, but he's hearing the verses and like that in his mind. So in that way is that actually one has to fit in every day, either chanting slokas or reading slokas or reading Prabhupada's books like that, and everything will fall into place and just Krishna reciprocates, because this is Krishna's words, God, the words of God.
I know. Thank you, Prabhuji.
So,
So, one more thing is, what advice do you have for our team? Like, books are the basis. We are the team, books are the basis. As Prabhupada coined, the 4 word books are the basis. It is the principles, purity is the force, and preaching is the essence. So how can we improve our service and better spread the message? Because we are doing interview, reaching out to people to inspire. Do you have any other suggestions you can give so that we can inspire others to read Prabhupada books? Any other methods?
one thing is stay steady in your service. So when you stay steady in your service, then you always want to add on to your service. So in that way, if you add on reading, okay, today I'm going to read one verse from Ishapanishad. And then eventually you say, okay, I'm also going to add on to that a verse from Gita. And then I'm going to add on to that a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. You don't bite off too much as you can take, but you always try to increase. And you stay steady like that in your service. Prabhupada said, the more such literatures are read and distributed, the more auspicity will be there in the world. That was a letter to Lilavati, March 26, 1972. And so that's one of the important things as well. Also, is that in Srimad Bhagavatam 2:16, there Prabhupada says in the translation of the verse, "O twice born, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva." So by serving the other devotees, because a lot of times we're serving ourselves. So we have to make time for serving the other devotees as well. And that's a very important point. Otherwise, it just becomes, self-serve. Our whole point is selfless. We want to help others, service to others.
That's important. So I think with this, we have completed all our interview things, but I would like to ask my final questions to you. I'd like to ask if you have any your personal connections or association with Srila Prabhupada, if you'd like to share one of your memory.
Oh, yes. When I received first initiation in New York on Henry Street, we had all gone into Prabhupada's room there, all the devotees. And when everybody came out, and I was so covered over, I was very covered. And so I went up to Pradyumna and I said, Pradyumna, what does my name mean? I said, he said, Bahushira. He said, yeah, it means many-headed one, and not to say, he said, I said, but what does it mean? I was new. So I said, just go ask Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was in his room, in the room there by himself. I went in off my obeisances and Prabhupada goes, yes. I said, Prabhupada, what does my name mean? And he said, what is your name? I said, well, I didn't know how to pronounce it right. The Sanskrit was all new to me. And I fumble on it and Prabhupada goes, Bahulashva. And I go, but Prabhupada, that's not my name. I know Bahulashva. Bahulashva. And he's going into ecstasy. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? So I didn't know what to do because I didn't know how to deal with this situation. So what I did is I just took my obeisances and I just went out of the room real quick. I should have just stayed there and watched Prabhupada go into ecstasy. But new devotee, as I was, I didn't know what to do. So I just hightailed it out of his room.
Finally got the answer or no?
Of course. But it was just, I just never forget that, because Bahushira is the one who taught me how to use these card tolls in Boston in 1971. So I was like, I know Bahushira. It was Coward Boy, of course, Bahushira.
I see.
And then another one was when I got second initiation in Atlanta in February of 1975. Prabhupada was there. And at that time, then after we got our initiation, I got second initiation with Vaishnavananda. And afterwards, we would, because in Atlanta, there's three buildings. So if you're facing the temple, Prabhupada's room was on the far right-hand side upstairs. So I went up the stairs and Shruti Kirti, he had the thread and he put it on me. And so then when I walked to Prabhupada's room, Prabhupada said, who's put that thread on you? I went, I said, Prabhupada, Shruti Kirti. So he said, it's okay, sit down. So I sat down next to Prabhupada, because he has to say the Gayatri mantra in my right ear. So then he has the paper and he goes, repeat after me. And I'm trying, And Prabhupada, after a while, he knew I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So he said, all right. He said, you'll eventually get it. He said, just keep repeating. So then afterwards, he says, I went and bowed down in front of his desk. And I'm like 3 feet away from him, because there's him and then the small desk and then me. And so he says, do you have any questions? And I just look into his eyes. And it's so deep. The eyes, were so deep. Just another God brother I was just listening to, he also said the same thing. His eyes were like, he's just like fathomless. And I just look, nothing came, I just started crying. And then I just felt my obeisances and I left. And I thought, I could have asked him anything. But, of course, hindsight's 2020.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So with this project, I would like to really thank you, Bahushira Prabhu, for joining tonight and really giving this interview at valuable time. I'd like to thank you. And thank you for serving Srila Prabhupada and the ISKCON movement for so many years and encouraging us for the Books at the Basis program. Hare Krishna.
Jai. One last verse.
Yes.
Unless we take care of the books and preach and read ourselves, understand the philosophy, this Krishna conscious movement will be finished in a few short years. That was a morning walk, LA, December 12th, 1973.
Jai.
Jai, Srila
Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.